Okay, let's talk about the Bucks. Some of this will be about their future, and as I'm sure you assumed, a good amount of this will be about how they look for this upcoming year. They got Giannis and Dame, so they still have a chance to be great. And for Bucks fans' sake, I mean, the fact you already got one title with this thing, like, that feels good. But safe to say, they don't have a million opportunities left. And obviously, this team is not perfect, given everything around those two. And even then, Dame needs to have a bit of a bounce back here by his standards. Giannis is amazing, and so no matter what I say here, there's going to be a level of stability that only a few players can give you, but Giannis is on the very short list of the best guys in the league. But as for what's around him, I mean, we know Brook's age, even if he's still important for them, because the center position past him is pretty late. They actually did just pick up a center today on a two-way contract. He's had like 17 career games in the NBA, so I don't know. Bobby Portis at center. I mean, Portis, yeah, he can score defensively. Not the guy I want protecting the basket. And Giannis can give you minutes at center, but of course you don't want to ask Giannis to play full-time center. You got Middleton, who was getting buckets, including a 40-point game against the Pacers in round one. But he just had surgery on both of his ankles. Dame, by his standards, was not great last year. And even then, I think if you have a healthy Dame and a healthy Giannis, very real chance they beat the Pacers in that round one. Although not a guarantee, because that Pacer team was their kryptonite throughout the regular season. Type of thing that DeLon Wright probably helps putting him on Halliburton. And for as much as I loved that Knicks team, yes, Dame and Giannis could have been in that team. Now, if you also want to say, well, what if the Knicks stayed completely healthy? Like, yeah, it would have been a fun series, but they could have won. We'll talk a little bit about the Dame Giannis pick and roll at some point in this video. And then you have the fact that they don't control really any of their own draft picks for a long time, which just makes it tougher to make moves. So if you want to envision them, even if it would be keeping Brook, but still like getting younger at the center position and potentially getting a 5 who can do a little more than just play drop, which is of course what Brook is at his best at, but someone who can switch or play high up on screens or whatever, it's just tough to do given their asset situation. And then there's the internet's favorite coach, Doc Rivers. So again, for how many real chances they have at winning a title left, I don't know, although it is nice that they already got one. But anyway, with all that said, look, their offseason moves were all good, especially given that they didn't have much to work with, right? I mean, DeLon Wright, damn good defensive player. They need perimeter defense help. Offensively, yeah, you wish he could give you more as a scorer, but as far as his passing goes, he's actually been one of the more underrated assist-to-turnover guys over the last few years. Taurean Prince, a fine wing, as long as you don't ask him to do too much, which we saw with Darvin Ham for some of that Lakers season. And then Gary Trent Jr. is just a hell of a pickup, given what they actually had to work with, like with contracts they could offer, right? Trent, a couple of years ago, got nearly 2 steals a game. He had a whole lot of deflections, and that stuff has dipped a little bit in the past couple of years. Some of that also his minutes have gone down. But the one trade-off to all that stuff is that you got to gamble to get that stuff, right? Being aggressive in passing lanes, that'll spiel. And of course he can make shots, and of course he's confident. 39% on 6 threes a game. And to be more of an optimist, even with all of the stuff they had to deal with last year, between Middleton's health, between the perimeter defense just being noticeably worse with Drew not there, Dame and Giannis' chemistry not getting to exactly where we envisioned it getting to on their 2-man game when we reacted to that trade. The 4-man group of Brook, Middleton, Dame, and Giannis in 680 minutes over 41 games last year had a positive net rating of 16.5. And I remember there being certain games where it's like, Dame and Giannis are getting into the screen actions enough, and then it's like a swing to Middleton, who can then attack off the catch himself and then get into his pull-up too. Or it's, Dame and Brook running their screen actions, which are good. Or, I still like when Brook is able to screen for Giannis to where he can get downhill. And we can't forget, they were 6th in offensive rating. And hell, they were only a couple decimal points away from getting closer to like 3 or 4. And again, that's with the 2-man game not being as good as it could be. And I mean, it's not fresh in my mind, but from what I remember, it was a combination of like, one, again, Dame was just straight up not as good this previous season as he was in Portland. And I don't think anybody should be surprised if he can just get back to that level. But the other thing was, I do remember with Giannis' screening, whether it was, slipping out of the screen really fast or not getting as much contact or just simply expecting the switch so often, that it was just never as seamless for him to do that as it is for like Brook to screen for Dame, In the last leg of the regular season, Middleton either missed a good amount of games or was in and out of the lineup, and one game he might drop 20, next game he might drop 11, and so while Middleton is, of course, not the best player on this team, he could be the swing guy of the whole thing, at least offensively. To me, there's a world where if they just get a little luckier with health, perhaps just the presence of Dame and Giannis and enough shooting around it can have them being a top 5 offense. And then defensively through, Brook holding up, which I know I'm saying nonchalantly, but it's a really big deal that Brook Lopez holds up. Giannis being the help defender that he is, a little more perimeter defense juice out of, some of their pickups this offseason. You would think that they could make a jump from 19th in defensive rating. That's what you're hoping for. I mean, last year they were 6th in offensive rating, they were 19th in defensive. Like, if everything just hits more this year, they get a little luckier with health and everything, Could they get to like 3rd in offense and 12th in defense? Maybe. So that's the regular season case for you. The two other big things for them defensively last year, I probably should have mentioned these earlier, was to start the year, their transition defense and their defensive rebounding were both worse than they were in the Budenholzer years. As the season got on, they did get better at those, and by the end of the year, they actually ended up 4th in defensive rebound percentage. So we'll see with those. The playoff cases, okay, that's all cool. Can you beat the Celtics and the Knicks and the Sixers, and if Miami taps back into their sorcery, Pacers, Cavs, Magic, etc. Let's just stick to the Celtics for a second. Giannis, of course, would be the best player in that series. I think Brook could be in a tough spot defensively, just having to deal with all the spacing the Celtics have. Now, with that said, for the Celtics, I think it's very real that Porzingis has one of those regular seasons where he pretty much never gets going 100%, and so then they just hope that he's ready for the playoffs. As far as Dame in a Celtics series, like the Celtics do have the defenders to slow down somebody like Dame. I mean, you look at Kyrie in the finals, he had one really good game, one good game, and then 3 bad ones, right, where he just didn't really have a matchup to go to when they were switching and everything. As I say that, Donovan Mitchell went scorched earth on the Celtics before he went down in that round 2 series, so I don't know. And I'm sure we all remember Pelicans Drew just locking up Dame. If we think about a potential Bucks-Sixers series, which is still kind of wild that we somehow have not gotten a Bucks-Sixers playoff series, I mean, Philly would have length to throw at Dame between, it'd be a lot of Oubre, PG, or Caleb Martin. Dame and PG have some history there. As far as guarding Embiid, I mean, Brook, to me, and again, they need Brook Lopez to hold up, but I do think Brook does about as good of a job as you can realistically ask somebody to do against Embiid, guarding him in 1v1s, right? I mean, their last game against each other, which was actually a minute ago now, but Embiid shot 9 for 21 and he had 7 turnovers. Embiid has had very good games against him as well. It's more so just to say, like, you know, Brook has a chance against Joel compared to other centers. But I think I've said this before, like, one reason I really want to see a Bucks-Sixers series is I just want to see Giannis driving with Embiid waiting for him at the rim, and just who wins that matchup with that happening. I don't know. A potential Knicks-Bucks series is fun because I think OG is one of the few guys where you can put him on Giannis and be like, all right, we can work with this as a defense. And then as far as guarding all of the really good perimeter players in the East, Halliburton, who's given them fits and then some, Mitchell and Garland, I think it's safe to assume Garland's going to have a bounce-back season. Brunson, having good defenders, period, for just everybody on the Celtics. Maxey, well, let's just say you're hoping for the greatest season of DeLon Wright's career. As far as guarding the wings in the East, they might have to ask Chris Middleton to do a lot. And sure, Taurean Prince is okay on the wing. DeLon Wright is 6'5", so he is switchable, but he can't do everything for you. Of course, Giannis is still best in the help defender role. Look, I'm not saying they have a chance to be like one of the best defenses. I'm saying, can you get to like 12th, 13th, around there? The last thing is, they would really love if one of these young guys hit and prove themselves to be just 20-minute-a-game rotation dudes. And you know Doc is going to be stingy with that for young guys. So Beauchamp, Andre Jackson, AJ Johnson, their first-round pick. As far as the starting 5, I mean, obviously if everybody's healthy, Dame, Giannis, Middleton, Brook. For that last spot, my guess would be that it's Gary Trent's job to lose for that starting spot, but I do think in specific matchups, I could totally see Doc just being like, yo, DeLon Wright, you're starting in this series over Trent. But we got a whole regular season to go before all that stuff. So anyway, that's the gist. Basically, for whatever you want to say about what it's going to look like 3 years from now around Giannis and Dame, and also Dame's age himself. But as far as this season goes, they've got a roster that's still holding up, and they've got Giannis. So you know what? You just got to get to the dance, and then who knows what can happen. Like, again, I think there's a timeline where if they stay healthy, they make the conference finals even with all the problems they had last year. Now, would I pick them to make the finals? No, but I'm just a guy.